His eye are fled, the ghoul next door. Hello my Spudguns, and welcome to another episode of Nightbleeds, and today I'm talking about the 1999 movie, The Astronaut's Wife. Okay, so we're introduced to our two main characters, played by Johnny Depp and Charlize Theron. He goes up into space the next day, and he's one of two astronauts who are on the ship, and they something happens and Charlize Theron's character is informed that the space station lost contact for 2 minutes. They have no idea what happened, but now her husband and the other astronaut are both in the hospital. After a day or so, we notice that the two astronauts, their personalities start to change slightly. At first it's subtle. Depp's character, he ends up quitting his job and wants to move across the country, leaving everyone to believe that this near-death experience he had freaked him out so much that he's just kind of looking for some solid ground. No pun intended. But he quickly starts to become more aggressive, both physically and sexually, becoming extremely territorial after the death of the second astronaut. Now, the wife of the second astronaut reveals that her husband had been hearing voices and started talking to static on the radio. And then she tells our main character that she is indeed, the second wife is indeed pregnant. She commits suicide a few minutes later by electrocuting herself. Fast forward a couple months, and our main characters, Jillian and Spencer, are settling into their new home, their new city. This is when Spencer's personality takes a turn for the worse. His aggressiveness turns to pure manipulation. When his wife asks what happened in the 2 missing minutes that he was in space, he starts to tell her, but he controls his voice in such a way that it starts to match her breathing, and he ends up seducing her. He in the middle of saying, okay, this is what happened, he turns it around and he uses it against her. This seduction then turns into a full-on rape. So this triggers Jillian hearing the voices in the static on the radio. And we learned that Spencer has been hearing these voices for a while and obsessed with talking to the static on the radio and talking to these voices. Jillian starts to at first believe that she is going crazy, but lo and behold, it ends up she's pregnant with twins. Her husband's new job has him designing a new streamlined spaceship, which of course he designs for a crew of 2. It's almost as if he's now acting like being a mere pilot is beneath him. And he has started to really distance himself from her. It's kind of like, okay, he got her pregnant and that's all she's there for. We learn that Jillian has had massive depression in her past, and she's seen visions and had hallucinations. So there's this whole idea that she might be losing her mind. Really played out, especially considering Spencer's behavior starts to become more and more controlling and suspicious in general. While she's out shopping one day, our heroine is visited by one of her husband's former co-workers. He has information about those missing 2 minutes in space, and he has medical files showing something is not quite right with her husband. He didn't come back from space the way he went to space. And at this point in the story, her sister shows up for a visit and starts to disrupt the control that Spencer has over her. And we learn that the wife of the second astronaut had been pregnant with twins as well. This is part of the information in the medical records, the medical files that that her husband's coworker gives her. The coworker ends up getting killed, and a key is sent to Jillian for a storage room filled with his research. Before she has a chance to actually really learn anything from it, the storage room is destroyed. All the research is destroyed. We also learn there is another voice, quote unquote, voice, on a recording that she was given by this coworker of the 2 missing minutes. That the government is technically covering up this other voice, but there's no explanation, there is no identifying it. It's sort of there, but it's sort of not, and only certain people can hear it. They bring in the idea that this voice is actually the energy essence of a space alien, that this is how it communicates. It communicates through radio waves, which would explain why our 2 astronauts became so obsessed with talking to the static on the radio. And of course, we learn that both astronauts are indeed possessed by aliens, that the aliens have locked into their bodies and traveled to Earth this way. Excuse me. And that they have locked into the bodies, and this is how the aliens have traveled to Earth. Our leads then somehow share this dream memory of the accident during the two missing minutes. The 2 missing minutes. From the point of view, actually, of the alien, not from either astronaut or from space cameras, but from the alien itself. Jillian decides to have an abortion by using the morning after pill, but is stopped by Spencer. And this actually reveals the deep psychological and psychic link that he has with the unborn twins. And it brings out this extreme violence within him, and he starts to physically abuse her. As she's running from him, he somehow magically appears across the room, and you're led to believe that he travels by thought and not by physicality, because it's pretty much just a one-way hall. Jillian is then she falls down the stairs. When she wakes up in the hospital, she finds out that she is still pregnant with the twins. Everything was done to save them, much to her discontent. Everyone around her starts to believe that she's crazy, that she's having hallucinations again. And Spencer begins to play into this. He begins to feed into this paranoia. His abusiveness and manipulation ramps up to the point where he actually kills the sister-in-law to keep her from helping Jillian. Jillian, she actually witnesses her sister's murder from the point of view of Spencer, simply because of this psychic link that the twins, the unborn twins, share with him through the alien possession. She then makes the decision to kill Spencer by electrocution, but the alien jumps out of his body and into hers at the moment of Spencer's physical death. Our final scene of the movie is Gillian and her second husband, a couple of years later, putting their two twins on the school bus, making a comment about him being a fighter pilot, this second husband. Okay, so we're dealing here in this movie with possession, and I've classified it as a vampire story because of the manipulation, because of the psychic bond, because of the control issues. This is classic vampire tendencies in more ways than one. We've got the abusive husband who wants total and utter control of the situation. And then at the same time, we have this psychic vampire who is, he's feeding off her fear. Not only do we have a typical psychic vampire, but we have this alien parasite who, by all intents and purposes, is a vampire itself, because it is living off of the reanimated, to an extent, body of Spencer. We find out that he died or almost died in space, giving the alien entity a chance to possess him and control him, and everything that happens from the point of getting radio contact back after these missing 2 minutes, it is the alien controlling, it is the parasitic vampire creature doing all this. It is the one who is feeding off of Spencer's body, feeding off of his mind, controlling him, with the one purpose of procreating, doubling itself. And then we get into this whole thing about the number 2, the duality of it. Everything comes back to the number 2. There's 2 missing minutes, 2 pilots, 2 sets. This movie itself, it's about abuse. It is a movie straight up about controlling, manipulative partners who can turn extremely ugly. Is the character played by Johnny Depp, the character Spencer, he becomes this really nasty character very rapidly. Going from the first scene we have of him, he's this really nice, kind of down-to-earth, quiet guy. He goes to space, he does what he's supposed to do, he comes back possessed. And it's making a point of introducing the character at the beginning of the movie, and he is a very calm, quiet kind of guy. And then as the movie progresses and we see that the alien who's possessing him is controlling and eventually abusive, and then resorts to murder to keep it secret. This is classic abuse story. Vampire or not, you have this controlling person who destroys the lives of everyone around them. So that was the remake of Rosemary's Baby. I mean, the astronaut's wife. Yeah, but you see where I'm going with that? There is a lot of elements taken from Rosemary's Baby. You have the poor, unwitting wife whose husband decides to relocate her to New York because of his job opportunities. They become pregnant very mysteriously one drunken night by a very brutal act of sexuality. The baby is not technically the husband, it is the entity controlling the husband, and the few friends that the wife has suddenly get killed to protect the secret. Not to mention, they tend to have Charlize Theron with the same haircut that Mia Farrow had in Rosemary's Baby. They dress her a lot like the character from Rosemary's Baby. There is more of a nod, rip-off, tribute, whatever you want to call it, to Rosemary's Baby than there is to any other sci-fi story going. Yes, there are elements of pretty much any possession story, any Jekyll and Hyde story, any alien movie, but this is, I would say, a good 75% remake of Rosemary's Baby. Okay, that's it for this part of things, and I will be back next time, so tune in again, tune in often, subscribe if you haven't, leave me a comment, show me some love. Until later, creeping screams!